It seems that Canada wants to participate in Mexico's invasion of the United States.
What? Canada helping Mexico invade the U.S., says Republican firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene.
As many of these Mexicans are obtaining an electronic travel authorization.
Authorization? No, it's authorization.
To fly into Canada, and they get that approved within minutes, and then they end up coming into the United States.
So what should we do about an invasion of the United States? At another congressional committee hearing, Greene was blunt.
As a matter of fact, I've co-sponsored legislation to declare war on the cartels because they are definitely declaring war on us, the American people, and our Border Patrol agents.
In an interview, Greene said, forget about Europe, focus on the U.S.
All we hear in Washington, Steve, is war in Ukraine, war in Ukraine. We've got our own Republicans like Lindsey Graham and many others out there drumming beating the drum for war every single day in Ukraine, when the real drum we should be beating for war is the one against the Mexican cartels, because that's the one I'm beating.
A war against the Mexican cartels and their allies in Canada. Bombs? Missiles? U.S. troops rolling into the south and north? At the moment, Greene is not offering operational details. But here are some facts. There has indeed, according to the CBC, been an increase in migrants entering the U.S. through Canada. Republicans have started raising it as an issue, part of their campaign against what they call the Biden administration's lax border policies. In that process, some have cherry-picked the data. They've made the numbers sound more dramatic by comparing them to early in the pandemic when there was little travel. The number of apprehensions is indeed up significantly from the last few years, but even at the current pace, Border Patrol agents would stop fewer than 9,000 people coming from Canada this year. That's less than in the early 2000s, and a rounding error compared to the more than 2 million on the Mexican border. In other words, when Marjorie Taylor Greene describes an invasion from Canada, she has no idea what she's talking about. Lumping the Canadian border migrant issue with the Mexican border migrant issue is ludicrous. But again, we're talking about Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, and basic intellectual capacity has never really been one of her strengths. To be clear, I wouldn't necessarily oppose a war on Canada or an invasion. I have lots of relatives up there, and I'd love to grab their hockey players and force them to be Americans. Relatedly, have you ever had good poutine in the United States? The dish of fries, cheese curds, and brown gravy, as it is served up north, is worth the annexation of Quebec. Trust me. And who wouldn't like to make America a bit more polite and kind? Add some Canadians into our U.S. mixing bowl, and we will all be happy, eh? In all seriousness, let's not pretend there's a migrant problem because of Canada. Our neighbors to the north are our largest trading partners and closest allies, and they do a fine job of helping to patrol and protect the U.S.-Canadian border. So I would like to personally apologize to all of Canada for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sure you can appreciate America's embarrassment and shame over her and a few others in the U.S. political system. They do not speak for most of us. Their wacky proposals are unauthorized or unauthorized, as Greene would say. Lord help us.
Chief Ortiz, are you aware that there was an explosive device found by Border Patrol agents on January 17th in an area called No Man's Land?
And just like that, Marjorie Taylor Greene blurted out something the U.S. government wanted to keep confidential.
And there's surveillance of who put it there?
There's surveillance. That was also confidential.
And guess what? It wasn't Americans, it was cartels. Are you aware of that?
The border chief is aware of cartel actions, but at the moment, he's focused on trying to pull back Greene.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and good to see you again. I will tell you that some of this information that I receive in a confidential skiff, so I'm going to be a little hesitant of briefing what I know and what I don't know with respect to some of those, an event like that.
SCIF stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. It's a secure place where lawmakers and law enforcement are supposed to review and discuss secret information, unlike a public hearing like this one.
I understand, Chief Ortiz, but I'm not going to be confidential because I think people deserve to know. Our Border Patrol agents should not be in those type of conditions where they are at risk of being blown to pieces by the cartels.
And now those Border Patrol agents are at greater risk of being blown to pieces thanks to you, Congresswoman Greene. Way to go. Hello, everybody. I'm David Schuster, and thanks for joining us. When a government agency like the Border Patrol or DEA decides that an incident like a potential explosive device or bomb should be kept quiet, it's often because the agency and U.S. law enforcement are not done investigating. U.S. authorities don't want to tip off whoever placed the device or may have attempted something criminal, because the goal is to still arrest that person or persons and sweep up everybody who helped along the way. But once any criminal organization knows a specific operation has been compromised, and that law enforcement knows things like the time, place, and manner of the operation, and perhaps even a photograph or identity of at least one person involved, that operation will dry up. Everybody involved starts to run and hide. And the next operation, the location, type of explosive, the people carrying it out, will be completely different. So law enforcement cannot thwart or stop it. Now, I get that this concept about keeping certain intelligence confidential to protect ongoing law enforcement operations may be too difficult for Congresswoman Greene to understand. She's not exactly a deep thinker, but she's now in the Homeland Security Committee, and she needs to learn that there is certain information that boosts Homeland Security that should not be shared in public. If Congresswoman Greene wants to debate the release of information, Congresswoman, that's fine. Have that debate first, out of public view. Many of us want our government to keep fewer secrets, not more, to share more information. But to just arbitrarily release something and tip off a criminal group because you want to score U.S. domestic political points, well, that is beyond the pale. I know many of you are saying, you're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. There are no standards and no integrity, and she doesn't give a crap about honest policy discussions. I get it. And even on this issue, the rise of drugs moving from Mexico into the United States, Congresswoman Greene seems to be all about self-promotion and dumbing everything down.
I've co-sponsored legislation to declare war on the cartels because they are definitely declaring war on us, the American people, and our Border Patrol agents. And I've had enough of it, and I know Americans have had enough of it.
So what would that war look like? Firing missiles and bombing the cartels, as Donald Trump wanted to do? Rolling U.S. troops into Mexico? Well, as Donald Trump and Congresswoman Greene have been told repeatedly, it's not that easy or simple. But in Greene's world, there is no capacity for nuance, complexity, or intelligence. And keeping things quiet to boost U.S. intelligence and law enforcement is a foreign concept. It's also a bit rich of Congresswoman Greene to care more about a potential explosive device along the U.S. border with Mexico than an explosive device or two left near the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th. But that's another story.
What about Social Security and Medicare? Well, are they safe? During the State of the Union, as some of you may have seen, I've been around for a lot of State of the Unions. I never saw one where the president got to negotiate in the open with everybody.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and President Joe Biden made a fool of Marge the Trainwreck Greene at an affordable health care event recently and had everyone busting a gut laughing at the Georgia jackaloon. We've all seen Marge the Trainwreck on TV dressed like a baboon in a white fur coat, and we've all heard about her Neanderthal heckling of the president at the State of the Union address.
I was pleased to see so many Republicans stand up. Remember when Marjorie Taylor Greene was yelling, liar, liar, Biden's a liar. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good.
At the event, President Biden recalled that he had openly negotiated with Republicans during his State of the Union address. Having him talk about going back and forth with Republicans about Social Security drew cheers from the audience, and it should. Our nation's seniors who depend on Social Security and Medicaid are worth fighting for.
We don't want to cut anything. When I asked, I said, okay, you don't want to cut anything. Everybody who says we're not going to cut Medicare or Social Security, when I asked them to join us and reject the cuts in Medicare, wasn't it something? They all stood up. They all stood up. And they're all on camera. Got all their pictures. Like I said, I believe in conversion. Maybe they found, as my grandfathers, maybe they found religion on Social Security and Medicare. I sure hope so, all kidding aside. But I'll believe it when I see it.
To take care of the least among you is a true test of character and integrity, something that Marge the Trainwreck Greene failed to learn in her cave she grew up in. The crowd busted out in laughter when President Biden asked, remember when Marge the Trainwreck Greene was yelling, liar, liar, Biden's a liar? At that point, Biden made the sign of the cross and seemingly bit his tongue instead of tearing into the disgraced Republican. The crowd roared with laughter as he promised to be good. Joe Biden has been to quite a few State of the Unions over his lifetime. He's a dignified and seasoned leader, and his accomplishments speak for themselves.